The Ultimate Picture Palace is the last independent cinema in Oxford. But what is it about the UPP that attracts audiences to watch their films? From the late 1920s to early 1930s, there was a notable rise in the popularity of cinemas in the Western world. This was due to the sound and motion picture being developed. Almost every town and city in America and the UK had a cinema. Many people would go several times per week. Although the Western population was faced with the Great Depression, millions of people would still visit cinema each day due to cheap admission prices. The period from the 1930s to 1960s became known as the Golden Age of Hollywood. The UPP shows a large variety of films, new and old, from the latest blockbusters such as Spectre and The Martian, to classics such as A Brief Encounter. This is what makes the UPP unique to other cinemas in Oxford.
Well, the first thing is that cinema is important. I think everybody goes to the movies, watches movies at home, however they consume them. People watch film, and independent cinema gives a more diverse voice. You get a lot more different ways of seeing the world through independent cinema than you probably do through a mainstream Hollywood film.
Modern-day cinematography utilises digital technology to record and produce good quality productions. With less movies being created in 35mm format, owners of independent cinemas would either have to invest in a digital projector, which can cost over $50,000 each, or face closing down.
Probably at least twice a month.
Well, in this country not very often, but probably once per month, something like that.
Usually about once a week. Not always, but very often once a week.
Never really.
Whenever I can. I don't live in Oxford, I live in Durham, so whenever there's a new film at cinema.
Like 2 times a month?
I mean, I think for me it's a sad, it's not as fun a way of watching film, and I think it's probably a sad thing if people don't experience watching films in many different environments. The reality is that people can't always come to the cinema. There's a cost implication and also time. I mean, I've sort of certainly now I have my neighbours who use my programme at the cinema. They have a very small child, find it very difficult to get a sitter. So they follow our programme by watching the films on Netflix because they can't get down here. So the reality is Netflix, Amazon Prime, all the rest of them, they are all here to stay. I think that people still do, if they can, would like to come to the cinema. And I actually think also that people who love film just love film and they'll watch it everywhere and anywhere. So I think that to sort of say that Netflix and all the rest of it is an evil and it's causing the demise of the cinema, I don't actually think that's necessarily true. It may be causing problems to multiplexes because they are not reacting to creating a special environment to watch film in. And I think what we do here and what works here is we create an atmosphere that people actually want to be in, and that makes them want to come and watch a film here. It's not enough just to put a film on screen. You actually have to make people want to spend the evening in your company, and then people will come to the cinema. So I think that Netflix gives people access to film, and I think that has to be a good thing.
It depends on the film. It depends on the film, and it also depends on, like, obviously when it's released. If it's something I'm excited about and it's just been released, I'd rather see it with the company of a bunch of other people. It just adds to the excitement. It adds to the jokes in the movie. It just makes it it puts like a depth on whatever's being displayed in the movie. So if it's sad, it's more sad or tragic. If it's happy, it's happier and funnier with the company of other people.
Well, again, it depends on my mood and my colleagues. I am going to cinema very often with friends, colleagues, and very particular days. So it's a social act. It's not just the cinema, isn't it? There is YouTube and TV. So there are so many possibilities to see anything you like. That for me, going to cinema is a social act.
No, at the cinema, definitely. I like the big screen, and I think it has more atmosphere than when you're watching it too.
Probably chill at home with some Netflix, yeah. Because I can't really be asked to go out and pay like 10 quid to watch a movie. And you get like free food at home and everything.
Well, probably at Netflix at home mostly because it's less costly, which is always a good thing to have. But yeah, that's definitely it.
I'd say cinema mainly. I don't have Netflix, and also it adds the value with the sound. I think is the main difference. The film is obviously similar, but the sound from the speakers you get and the lighting as well is different in the cinema. So I prefer to see the film in the cinema, I think.
The world's first drive-in cinema was opened in 1933. Originally called Park-In Theatres, created by Richard Hollingshead and advertised as entertainment for the whole family. Hollingshead would charge admission prices of 25 cents per person and per car. At one stage, there were thousands of drive-in cinemas all across America, but recent numbers have peaked at around 500.
I think my love of film didn't come in the cinema experience, actually. I think I fell in love with movies watching Sunday afternoon weepies with my mother from the age of about 11 onwards. The sort of the Olivia de Havilland, Brief Encounter, all those sorts of films. And we used to sit on the sofa side by side and weep. And my father used to walk into the room, see us, and walk straight out. You sort of half of the experience was watching him backing out in embarrassment. And, oh God, they're watching that again. So that was so it was very much a shared experience with my mother.
Independent. Usually the selection of films is better or more interesting to me, and not so many like blockbusters, which I don't find that interesting. And also I just like to support independent like movie projects and independent filmmakers.
Well, it depends very much on the particular movies which they are offering, the price as well, and my mood. So it depends very much, really. But if I have to give an answer, I probably an independent cinema like this.
On the whole, an independent cinema. Because of the range of films, they show films which I'm more interested in general.
Definitely independent. Like the Curzon in Soho is my favourite, so if I'm going to go to the cinema, I'll go to that.
It depends whether we actually have access to an independent cinema or not. It also depends on the films that are being shown.
I think independent, especially in Oxford, I prefer the smaller independent cinema here. So yeah, independent. It's just more of a, I'd say, cozy atmosphere. Like it's a bit smaller. It feels more familiar and personal than the big branded ones that are just churning out the same sort of thing. I went to the big one behind us, which is the chain one, to see the James Bond film, and it just didn't really feel quite the same as the independent one. So.
Whether an independent cinema like the UPP or a mainstream cinema like the Odeon, the cinematic social experience will always be the same.
I mean, the simple answer is we put on films that we all want to see ourselves. It's a fairly slightly self-indulgent programming. But also, I mean, having said that, I think we have the same. I live in the neighbourhood, so I am fairly representative of the core audience that comes to the cinema anyway, as are the people who work with me and who help me to make programming decisions. Because we're tiny, we don't go to preview screenings. We very much read the reviews and draw on our knowledge of film, and we're all film obsessed, so we know all the work of all our favourite directors and stuff like that. So it's a combination of a lot of factors, but because we play off the date, we do have the luxury of being able to read reviews before we have to make a final decision. And that sort of helps us pick the films that we know people are going to want to see and are going to be prepared to wait to see, because we show everything sort of 5 to 6 weeks after it's been released. So we have to choose the films that have legs and that aren't going to lose their audience after the first week.
Even though this is the last independent cinema in Oxford, it's here to stay.